Are you sitting comfortably? Then we may begin. Behind the seemingly innocent exterior of every Coke vending machine lies a gateway to another world. This is a world of towering cliffs, of thunderous waterfalls, crystal clear streams, and never-ending sunsets. The world of Happiness Factory itself is actually perched on the edge of a much larger wilderness that we haven't told you about yet. But Jeff and John, who are here from Wieden, are going to tease you a little bit with that later and talk a little bit about where the world is going to go. Here's a few images of the world, and I have to give a shout out to Psyop and Justin if he's around. Justin,
what up, Justin?
Justin.
Where is he? There he is. Psyop, who are the creators of this beautiful world. These are a few of the scenes. So these are what we call the ice mountains. This is one of the underwater caves. And this is the magical, life-giving tree. For anyone who's seen the Happiness Factory film, this is kind of like a portal, and the arms of the tree actually stretch out to every single Coke vending machine in the world. So this is where the source of life comes from within the world. Those with a keen eye for detail will notice that it's largely organic, the world, but there's a mechanical sort of substructure to this world, this sort of slightly Victorian-looking piping that you see. And we'll get onto that, actually not even in Happiness Factory 2, that's more sort of 3 and 4, but it dates back about 120 years. These are some of the characters. This is the Mad Kappa. We call him the Mad Kappa. He's the chap who specializes in putting the caps on the Coke bottles, so he does it by catapult. I'm not exactly sure why he does it by catapult, but because that's what he does. He knocks his teeth out every time he does it. This is one of the Chinoinks. They're quite vain creatures, so he's having a massage. These are the mad scientists, the penguins. There are temperature experts. They make sure that the Coke gets served at the correct temperature. And this picture of them is actually in the ice fields, I think. These chaps we call them the mortar men, and anyone who's seen the film will recognize them. They're the balls of flying fire that happen at the end, at the celebratory scene at the end of the film. So they're kind of the explosive experts and resident pyrotechnicians. The workers, without them, nothing would happen in the factory. They're really the unsung heroes of the world of Happiness Factory. And the majorette, she's the MC, and she's the source of all inter-factory gossip. And she does wear underwear. So I'm going to, before I hand over to Jeff and John, I'm going to talk a little bit about storytelling, sort of in a more abstract sense, because I'm just fascinated by it personally. And I think it's something that our industry has quite a lot to learn from. So just excuse me for the indulgence. I'm going to go into the art of storytelling and the art of telling a good story. I got interested in storytelling years ago through my mum's husband, who's from Lisnaskea in Southern Ireland, and he's a natural storyteller. He's just one of those people who can tell a story about a trip to the corner shop and make it sound like an epic adventure of heroism and tragedy. And he's just a natural raconteur. When I started working in advertising a few years back, I sort of had the slightly naive notion of, wouldn't it be great if our audience listened to us with the same level of attention, sort of eager to hear the next episode, and sort of on the edge of their seats waiting to hear the next episode that I used to have, when I was a kid listening to Alan tell stories, as opposed to the doom and gloom stories. And I won't bore you with the figures, you've all heard them. Our audience aren't listening to us anymore. They're basically doing other things instead. They're watching YouTube or playing video games, and all of that is true. So that's really what this talk is about. It's about the art of storytelling. And that is, by that I mean the art of telling a story over time that the audience want to listen to, as opposed to this sort of model of communication that we've got ourselves into as an industry, I think, which is about sort of ramming a message down people's throat or finding increasingly sort of ingenious ways of getting that message in front of people and sort of interrupting them. And that's really what we mean by storytelling. That's the art of storytelling is the art of telling a story over time. When I started working at Coke, one of the first things that I did was went down to the archives, and actually Coke has an amazing history of telling stories. I'm sure you'll recognize this chap. We commissioned an artist, Sunbloom, about 70 years ago to do a series of drawings of him. And I think this is him sort of at home. I think he's drawing a list. Yeah, good boys and girls, so he's doing a list. But there was a series of images of him actually at home and at work. And what's interesting about this story, there's another one there, he's always carrying a Coke, obviously. What's interesting about this story is that there weren't really any words associated with it. It was a story that was told solely through pictures, but it really caught on, really caught people's imagination. And it's still with us today. I think it's the most enduring story that we've ever told at Coke. You're probably familiar with these creatures as well, the polar bears. I don't think, honestly, when we created Sunbloom or when we created polar bears, that we had any idea, to be honest, that we were still going to be talking about them 70 years on or 20 years on. And so what the subject of this talk is about is, now that we've got Happiness Factory, how do we plan for this thing to still be here 30 years from now? Because we do want it to still be here 30 years from now. And I do believe that it will become the most famous property that we own as a company. I do believe that we will be talking about it 30 years from now, if we do our jobs right. I hope so. Me too. There's a beautiful picture of them looking at the moon, having a Coke. And this is actually, I call it a story because polar bears we actually haven't told people much about where they come from or what their story is or where they're going to or what they're thinking. So there's a lot of elements of this story that we haven't told yet, and yet the little bit of the story that we have told has people, eagerly tuning in for the next episode. It's amazing to me to listen to sort of cynical, jaded teenagers talk about why they like polar bears. It touches something. It touches a chord in us somehow. Even the most cynical people, that moves us in some way. So I think there's some lessons to be learned from that.